hosted this most important address today by Pak Yahya, General Secretary of the Nahdlatul Ulama, the world's largest Muslim organization, been a great friend to us through the years here at Policy Exchange, most important participant in a great many debates on cross-civilizational dialogue, and particular pleasure to welcome him here because, of course, he was a prominent member of our Indo-Pacific Commission here at Policy Exchange, chaired by former Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper, and which had so singular an impact on the integrated review a couple of years back, and particular pleasure to welcome you here in the wake of the R20, the counterpart to the G20, which deals with various cultural, religious, and, as I said, civilizational issues that have too often divided us, but the role of Nahdlatul Ulama in playing a part in composing these differences, or many of them at least, or seeking to bridge them, needs no explication before this audience. He's going to address us and then answer questions from this distinguished gathering, both here and online. Usual House rules in spirit of pluralism, which I know Pak Yahya adheres to after his visit to the Oxford Union last night, is no question too outrageous. You just have to state your name and organisation first. So without further ado, over to you, and welcome back to London. We look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace and God's blessing be upon you. Thank you, Lord Carson and Policy Exchange, for inviting me here and granting me the honor of the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, the danger of identity and communal politics is no secret, I believe, for all of us, especially in the context of our current reality, where first we have a fundamentally different political constructs for our societies, both everywhere in the world, in the West and the Islamic world, and also in the rest of the world. And also with regards to the reality of heterogeneous society that we have in most parts of the world. So in the past, identity conflict, including conflict between different religions, were regarded as something normal, maybe, as you may understand that at least before the World War I, the world was a jungle of competing identities, which continuously fighting each other and waging wars against each other. But then, in that era, the one who did the conflict, the one who fight the battle, was the soldier of the state, or more or less professional soldiers controlled and mobilized by the state. So in the past, when the Ottoman Empire, as the representative of Islamic civilization, was in a war against European Christian kingdom, the ones who did the battle were the soldiers in limited areas of battlefield, while the rest of the society were like being protected far from the battlefield. And there was a system in the political construct back then that keep or prevent the communal conflict between different groups of identities. But nowadays we have a different kind of socio-political system as a model. We have a different kind of state. We don't have a state that can legitimately claim to represent a certain identity or religion, but we have societies that are mostly heterogeneous with various different groups of identity living next to each other in the same neighborhood everywhere in the world. So if we allow conflict, a communal conflict of identities, then what will we have is a social conflicts, social unrest that will be, but will tend to be chaotic in manner. And we already see this kind of situations in various places in the world, such as in India, with what the Hindu people are doing to the minorities in India, the Muslims and the Christians. We see the same thing, for example, in Nigeria, where the Christian minority are being persecuted and even lynched by the Muslim majority there, and also in other parts of the world, such as in the East, in Southeast Asia, in Myanmar, and even in Indonesia. So we believe that, I believe that identity and communal politics is something that we have to avoid. Now, identity and communal conflict usually involve at least three elements. One, the stance of the religion itself as manifested in the teachings, as taught to the people, to the adherents of the religion, as propagated by the religious authorities. See, in Islam, for example, as actually I personally and Nahdlatul Ulama have been constantly and consistently articulating within Islam, there are some tenets of teachings that would encourage people to go for a conflict against other or whoever perceives as others. And the way I see it, this is not something exclusive to Islam. Religion naturally has a default mode of supremacist tendency, because every religion claims to be the sole provider of guidance toward the absolute truth, and the claim of others as the lost ones, seeing others as people to be saved from darkness, something like that. So it isn't the original impulse of religion to have this kind of view. And that also we find that kind of tenets of teachings we find in Islam also. Now, so we need to encourage people of religion to rethink about their own respective religious teachings. Because now we have a very different reality compared to what our ancestors had in the past. And now we cannot afford conflicts of religion and identities like what our ancestors had in the past, for various reasons, including the advanced development of military technology, for example. That now we have military technology with destructive power that it's like unlimited power of destruction. And we have now an advanced acceleration of globalization, where nothing happened in any part of the world has no impact to other parts of the world. Anything happen in one side of the world will have a significant impact to other parts. So if we allow, for example, in one part of the world to have the communal conflict of religion or identity, we will eventually come to a situation where the emotion of the conflict will impact the rest of the people with respective, with perception of similar identity with those who are involved in actual conflict. For example, if we allow what happened in Nigeria to continue happening, inevitably, eventually, we will come to a situation where Muslims everywhere and Christians everywhere would be emotionally influenced by this, and then, logically will be encouraged to have similar conflicts against each other in the rest of the world. So it is my belief, our belief, that the political, the identity and communal politics is dangerous. We have to avoid it because it will lead to communal conflicts that will potentially wind up to a much greater conflicts globally that the world and global civilization would not afford to have. Now, so people of religion should, we should encourage people of religion to rethink about their respective teachings of their religion. To think about the practical consequences of the religious teachings that they have, and then encourage them to generate alternative discourse of religious teachings when the religion has problematic tenets of teachings. Now, that's one element, the stance of the religion itself. And the second element is the mindset of the people. See, like I said, identity and communal politics will drive people to engage in animosity, enmity, and conflict against whoever perceived as different groups. And if we allow the people to keep the mindset of seeing other groups as enemy, as subject of suspicion, and even, subject of enmity, then this mindset, this kind of mindset, will eventually lead the people to engage in actual conflict against each other. And now we have to acknowledge that there are indeed these kinds of mindset among the people. Indonesia, for example, is famous about its the culture of tolerance, the relative harmony of the people. But I have to and I've been keeping openly admit that we have this problem in the mindset of the people. And once there is a trigger, a political trigger to to express this mindset, then people will easily move with this impulse of enmity against others. This happened in Indonesia just recently in 2017, 2019, and the dangerous consequence still exist now, until now. We still are struggling to heal the wounds that that were already inflicted for the past conflicts. So we have people with this mindset of enmity against others, resentments against others, and so forth. And this mindset actually, this kind of mindset is shaped by the articulation of the religious authorities and also by the articulations coming from the political leaders. So when political leaders keep articulating the ideas of seeing others as an enemy, then it will shape the mindset of the people. So the third element, of course, is the political actors. How the political actors do their political works, because we know and we are seeing until now political actors here and there intentionally, deliberately use the identity and religion, communal identity as a political weapon to gain political support. We have to do something to get the political actors to be aware. We need to be aware. We need to raise awareness among political actors about the danger of this kind of political behavior, utilizing identity and religion as political weapon to gain the support. Now, these ideas that I explained to you is the foundation of our idea to have the G20 Religion Forum. The idea is to have a gathering of the relevant and significant actors to deal with this problem of identity and communal politics, and try to find a way to avoid it. Now, then we have a momentum where Indonesia has the presidency of G20, so we put our idea of this gathering into the G20 setting, and we name it the R20, Religion 20. And we had the support from Indonesian government and from the President Joko Widodo personally. So we can say we succeeded to have that R20 event with full support from the government and other significant allies of ours. Now, we put it in the setting of G20, not just to borrow the leverage of G20, but also to try to put it into the into the annual agenda of the G20. So once we put we manage to get approval from the government to put our event into the G20 setting, we reach out to our Indian friends and Indian religious and political leaders to offer them this agenda also. Because now, after Indonesia, India has the presidency of G20. So next November, we hope we will have another R20. And this is, in many ways, will serve our purpose. For example, this will give us the opportunity to deal with actual existing problem, such as what is happening now in India. Because there is a problem in India, related to identity and communal politics, And for this reason, then, we intentionally reached out to the Muslim World League, which is a Saudi's, entity, an Arabic entity. Why? Because we know from our communication, we've been, doing, we've been investing. We make investment of relationship with some significant figures in India for quite some years. And we understand for our communication with our Indian friends that they have a deep, problematic sentiment toward Islam as something coming from the Arabs, from the Arab culture. That's what they have in mind. So we intentionally reached out to Muslim World League to create an opportunity of engagement between the Indians and the Arabs, and open a communication between, the two different parties to try to find a path towards solution for the problems that they have. Now, so we did the event by inviting people, religious leaders, who encounter problems with their respective community. We invite, for example, Archbishop Nkuba from Nigeria, and gave him the opportunity to tell the people about what happens with his community as the victims of this communal and identity politics in Nigeria. We invite Bishop Warda, Bashar Warda from Erbil, Iraq, to tell the people about the problem that his community have, and so forth. And we managed to trigger and encourage an honest and straightforward conversation in that R20 event, which we held for several days, from the 2nd of November to the 6th of November in Bali and Yogyakarta. To this point, I have not been able to claim anything about a future potential success of this endeavor, but at least we already made a start. And we have people who, if you're there, you would see, these people were touched and then committed to the vision, of working together. People even were talking about to make this R20 as not just an event, a gathering, an annual gathering, but a movement, a global movement. So this is a great potential, and we surely will do our best to pursue this great potential to be materialized in the future. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay.
Thank you. I know there'll be questions to ask. Just who do I see? Gentleman there, if you just wait for the microphone in the front, please. Just if you state your name and organisation for our.
Khalid Mahmood, Member of Parliament from Birmingham, Perry-Barr. I welcome the idea of the R20. I think it's really important for the religions to start to speak together and get some basic structure of cross-community. And your idea of having this discussion of the recognized soldiers and what's going on currently. I think what we need to do, as well as doing what you're doing, is to have a lot more enforced view on whether these people are legitimate or not. And I think people like your organization, you do a huge amount of good work in this to ensure that we can start to tackle the ideology of these people and to move forward. So I would welcome that. But secondly, there's a huge issue at the moment in relation to Islamophobia. And a lot of things have been referred in terms of Islamophobia. But yet the definition isn't good enough to actually move this forward. So what work can we do together to make sure that we get the definition right so it actually becomes something that means something, rather than at the moment is something that which has no real teeth or no real penetration in terms of the communities of what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, first we have to acknowledge that everything is reciprocal. You may have a problem of Islamophobia, but you surely have the problem of kafirophobia, the phobia among Muslims toward others. It's there, exists. So this is something that we need to deal with in an objective way. And again, because so far that I am seeing, people oftenly use also the issue of Islamophobia as a political weapon against others. We need to deal with this in an objective way for the well-being of the community, of the society, and not just for political gimmick or something, because it's there. I have it's still something quite customary in the preachings of Islamic preachers here and there, to articulate the impulse of enmity against others. In Indonesia, for example, we have in some areas of Indonesia where there are Muslims as majority, and people, are blocking community of other religion to have places of worship. We have, for example, in some a place near Jakarta actually, that the Christian cannot build their own church on their own land because the Muslims, simply move against them, they do whatever they can, like mobilizing a mob against the church, when they want to start the building and so forth. This is kafirophobia, the way I see it, because the Christians are a minority, and there's no logical way to see this minority as a threat to the Muslim majority, but yet the Muslim majority are seeing them as as a threat, something threatening. That is kafirophobia. So what we need to do, I think, is to get these people to again have an honest and straightforward conversation about the problem. I've been quite active in the interfaith dialogue tradition for decades, since 1980s actually. And the more I'm active in the in the forum of dialogue, I'm seeing that people are rarely honest about the problem. What happened in various forums of dialogue, interfaith dialogue, is just people indulging each other with compliments, saying sweet, nice words, and not talking about the real problem. Well, the problem is there in front of our eyes. So again, what we need is an honest conversation. We did that in the R20, and it was great. It was so encouraging for people to have that honest conversation. But because then they realized that they can talk about the problem openly, straightforward, without risking attack from others, because everybody are aware and are prepared to acknowledge the problem as what it is.
Thank you. I see online, Christopher, can you hear me online? Christopher, can you hear me? Sometimes there's a time lag.
I can hear you.
Would you just say your name and organisation for our distinguished visitor?
Thank you, sir. Canon Christopher Sugden, Oxford Centre for Training, Advocacy, Research and Dialogue. I was privileged to be present at Bali and thank Pak Yahya very much for his initiative. Just a question of clarification, please. You mentioned G20 and R20 in 2023, and you mentioned November. I see that G20 is due to be in Delhi in September 2023. What is the relation between R20 and G20 as you envisage it next year, please?
Yeah, actually, to put the R20 as one of the main events of the G20 forums. So it was the recent government who, set the dates for our R20 in Bali and Yogyakarta actually. So now, India has the presidency, but see, the R20 was one of the main events of G20, but not yet acknowledged to be among the official engagement groups of the G20, not yet. So there is no official guarantee that there will be R20 every year, annually, along with the G20. But we already have commitment from our Indian friends, and among them are religious leaders and also political actors. Some are quite close to the Indian government, that they have the commitment to have another R20 in conjunction with the G20 in India next year. So when I say November, it was just a tentative date or timing, but this is something that still to be defined later, decided later.
Thank you. From Rumi online, just can you hear me? Rumi? Time lag. Play for a few more seconds. I'll see if there's somebody else here in the audience then.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
if you just say your name and organisation, please.
Yes, Rumi Hassan, University of Sussex. Sorry, I couldn't unmute. Yes, I agree with Dr. Stakuf's, I think, suggesting that Islamophobia is not helpful. And I think we should get away from phobia, because now we have Hindu nationalists talking about Hindu phobia, and then we can have Sikh phobia. So I just don't think this is a helpful path. And in my view, it actually stifles free speech. What I did want to ask, because I think Natul Ulama is a very interesting grouping, which we don't hear much about in the West, is their notion of getting rid of a very central Islamic idea of infidel, which is central to the Quran and Islam, and replacing it with citizens. Now, to my mind, that could be helpful in, if you like, reducing the phobias that Muslims have for, or dislike or hate of other groups, and reducing identity, religious identity, specifically Muslim identity, and therefore, suppressing to some degree communal politics. And it struck me that this is a very important development that you could use in your dealings with Muslim groups, bodies, religious leaders in other countries. And I'm wondering whether you're inspired by this quite courageous stance by Mutazilite thinking, which was, if you like, offering, if you like, in modern parlance, a more moderate version of Islam. Would you be please kind enough to comment on that?
Okay, yeah. There is, a concept of infidel or kafir in the Quran, which is a category for anybody who do not accept Islam as a faith. But the problem is not whether people are infidels or not. So the problem is how they should be treated. And this is something that is related to the reality of relationship between Muslims and non-Muslims. So in the past, for centuries, actually, Muslims were engaged in actual conflicts and enmities against non-Muslims. It was started from the very beginning of Islam. And once Islam managed to have its own political system, a state, so to speak, then this Islamic state, Islamic empire in the past then engaged in hostile conflicts against the neighboring non-Muslim states or kingdom. And each party claimed to act on behalf of its respective religion. So that was in the past. But now we have a new international order since the UN Charter and the operationalization of UN organization, which in principle, it is not allowed to invade other country, with no legitimate reason. In the past, it was something normal. It was not just between Muslim and non-Muslim, even between different kingdom in Europe. It was normal. And the conflicts happen everywhere, anywhere the two, the different forces met each other, in the land, in the sea, and so forth. But now we have this new construct of international order. So people of religion, including Muslims, should rethink about, what should be the proper way to treat others or the infidels, so to speak. Because now we are living in a world where it's simply not right. It's simply not right to engage in conflict with people of other identities. Now, so the category of kafir or infidel actually is not relevant as long as everybody is treated equal. I was in Washington just a couple of years ago. It was 2021. I met a group of Ahmadiyya people there in Washington. And we had this conversation, and they insisted, demanded me and Nahdlatul Ulama, to fight to get the acknowledgement for Ahmadiyya as part of Islam. Because, in many places in the world, Muslims considered Ahmadiyya as non-Muslim. It's not, it's beyond Islam. Ahmadiyya people are considered to be infidels, or kuffar, something like that. And then I said, being Muslim or non-Muslim in this sense is irrelevant as long as you are treated equal. Even me, I said, myself, I was not yet chairman of Nahdlatul Ulama back then, but I was the general secretary of the Supreme Council. It's quite, I had a substantial religious authority back then. But even I, in my position, am oftenly accused, as kafir or infidel because of what I did or what I said, Because people may have various different opinion about religion. But it doesn't matter, as long as I am treated equal. So this is something that we need to fight for, actually, equality. I heard once, our friend Bishop Pasarwarda, he articulate in a kind of, bitter way. He said, tolerance is not enough. We need equality. That's what he said. But he said he's true. He's right. This is what we need to, to struggle for. We need to provide equality for everybody, regardless of the differences in their background. So now people have this perception about Sharia. Many Muslims are thinking that Sharia is something that is final, complete, final, unchangeable, and so forth. But actually, the right understanding of this concept of Sharia is not like that. That is not the case for the true meaning of Sharia. Sharia actually is the fundamental values of the religion, while in actual life of the people, dealing with their reality, they have to think about the operationalization of Sharia into a more operational norms. So Sharia as the fundamental values, actually, well, it is, okay to see Sharia as something that unchangeable, but it is the fundamental values, such as, believing in God, believing in justice, compassion, and so forth. It's all the fundamental values. But when you deal with reality, you need operational norms, more operational norms, such as how should you treat, the others. In the past, for example, Muslims had the operational norms related to the non-Muslims, putting the non-Muslims as, subject of suspicion and enmity. That's why there were discourse about the different categories of non-Muslims, or kafir as kafir dhimmi, kafir mu'ahad, and so forth. Because the reality back then was the actual reality of continuous conflict between Muslim society as an entity against the others, such as what happened between the Ottoman Empire against the Christian kingdoms in Europe. But now, that kind of reality is not there anymore. It's not there anymore. So we don't need, the operational norms that we had in the past. Now, we don't need it anymore. We need to change that operational norms. That's why in 2019, Nahdlatul Ulama and our National Conference of Ulamas, the gathering of our ulamas, involving thousands of our ulamas nationwide, and we had this discussion about the matter, about the status, the consequence, the legal consequence of the status of non-Muslim, the status of kafir. And after quite intense discussion, our ulamas then ruled new fatwa, so to speak, or a new view about the legal consequence of the status of infidel, saying that the category of infidel is no longer relevant in the context of a modern nation state, because everybody has to be equal before the law, because that is the the actual principle based on our current existing construct of order nowadays. So these are an examples of how operational norms can be changed because of the changing in the reality.
Final question. Just trying to see who wants a question from the gentleman there towards the back. Name and organisation, please, and then towards the front.
Justin Meggitt, and I'm from the University of Cambridge. So my question is, this R20 initiative seems to be a very globally significant development. So thank you very much for talking about this today, and also talking about the relationship between political actors and identity and conflict, religious identity and conflict. But I wonder what your thoughts are on the role the R20 would have in those states where, although some members of those states, their religious identity is important to them, the political leaders on the whole, and an increasingly large body within those states, do not think that religion is significant to them. It's not part of their identity. So what could the R20, what role could those members of the G20, where religion is not so significant, have in this R20?
And final question towards the front gentleman there, if you just bring the microphone. Just there. Name and organisation, please.
Afsal Amin. My name is Afsal Amin. I'm here as a private individual. If we were to ask you for a fatwa on the role of Islam in the UK, what would that fatwa say to the leadership of the British Muslim organisations?
Thank you. For the first question, there are states like UK itself which do not regard religious identity as something that is part of its political agenda or concern. But you have people of religion here in UK, and if you allow this dangerous conflict of communal conflict of identity in other place in the world, it will eventually affect your people here in UK, and it will bring you a problem. It will bring problem to your, to your country. So, and you already see, actually, I believe you already are seeing this happening here in UK, because I'm seeing it too. See, so that's why this is. We believe that this is our common interest, to deal with this problem, try to find a path forward towards solution. And if I have to say something to UK Muslim community, so the first thing you need to do is to find a way to integrate harmoniously with the rest of the society in UK. That's what you need to do. And this is something that is not an exclusive concern from Muslims also, because like I said, everything is reciprocal. So you need efforts from within the Muslim community, but you need to find people from beyond the Muslim community who would be willing to have, a shared movement, for this purpose. But again, see, what we need to have is not just in UK. We need to create an environment in our society where people of different identities, different religion can integrate each other harmoniously without, sacrificing, its own respective beliefs. That's why in the R20 we offer a logic of a logic of efforts forwards, which is first we need to identify the common values that we do share, we already do share as our common platform to work together, to cooperate each other. And we do have shared values among different religions, believe in God, believe in compassion toward others, believe in justice and so forth. And then we need to identify what kind of values that we need to share, that is requisites for us to share in order to enable us to coexist peacefully with each other. And if needed, we need to change whatever considered to be the established norms or values that hinder us from engaging with each other in a peaceful and harmonious way. The thing like what Nahdlatul Ulama did related to the legal consequence of the category of non-Muslim. There's something that we need to, relinquish, to change. And then the rest of the differences that we have, we can still have, we can just tolerate each other, So you do what you do, we do what we do, and we don't, bother each other, just like that. But again, one thing that we absolutely need is a harmonious integration of people. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think been outstanding presentation by Pak Yahya, particularly welcome at this time because we've been doing quite a lot of meetings and other studies on matters of immediate concern in the British domestic scene, and this sort of, as it were, sets our concerns as truly global, and particularly welcome that you've done it obviously at this difficult time in Indonesia with the recent disaster on your own island of Java. And I know that everyone here will share with me in the loss of sorrow for the loss of all those who've perished, and including of course many members of your own Nahdlatul Ulama. But just to thank you, say you're always welcome here, and for, as I say, raising our sights in the way you have done. Look forward to welcoming you back soon. Thank you.
Thank you.